Markets in Focus is a program designed to give traders an insight into the currency projections of some of the biggest names in the financial industry. To do just that, I'm joined by Vassili Serebriakov, a currency strategist from Wells Fargo in New York. Japan's strong yen has reached historic highs this year against the US dollar. At what level do you see the dollar yen in the short, mid and long term?
Well, I think what's interesting is that we've seen the correlations between the Japanese yen and equity markets falling significantly in the past several months. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One is the convergence between the U.S. and Japanese short-term interest rates, and then two, the recent intervention and the ongoing threat of further intervention by the Japanese authorities. So really, I think we're seeing a continuation of a tight trading range in the dollar-yen for the time being. The yen, we believe, is really stuck between the positive pressure coming from more unsettled financial markets and the threat of official intervention that's preventing it from going higher. So this sideways trend in the dollar-yen would see pretty much 77 to 78 range over the next 6 months, and then gradual weakness in the yen, with dollar-yen rising to around 80 level on the back of a moderate improvement in the U.S. economy that's we're seeing in the latest numbers. We would, however, say that a sustained period of yen weakness is unlikely unless and until we have short-term U.S. interest rates moving higher on a significant and sustained basis.
What about euro-pound? The UK economy is facing difficulties and the Eurozone is said to be heading into a mild recession. So how do you see this pair performing throughout next year?
Well, I think both currencies suffering from weak fundamentals in their respective economies. What's interesting is that both central banks, both the European Central Bank and the Bank of England, are in the middle of a policy easing cycle. We could expect more from the Bank of England in terms of expanding its bond purchase program, and I think we can expect more from the European Central Bank in terms of lowering the refi rate further and perhaps expanding some of its non-conventional measures as well. Of course, what the euro has that the pound doesn't have is the ongoing debt market stress, and I think that's still yet to be fully reflected in the euro, whereas for the pound we feel that a lot of the bad news is already priced in, and to some extent the pound is benefiting from being an alternative to the euro within the European region. So we very much expect the euro-sterling cross to continue trending lower, which it has been in recent weeks, and we see euro-sterling around 80 level in 6 months and 76 in 12 months.
And finally, let's discuss one of the Antipodean currencies. What are your forecasts looking like for the commodity currency like the Aussie dollar, US dollar?
Well, in the short run, I think there's still downside risks to the Australian dollar. Obviously, the currency is very vulnerable and sensitive to movements in equity markets, and as European debt market stresses persist, I think the Australian dollar could face further downside in the near term. I think overall, although we have seen some policy easing in Australia, the interest rate differentials should still be very much skewed towards the Australian dollar and in favor of the Australian dollar, and that's what's going to support the currency next year when we believe the broader financial market conditions are going to improve. There's some additional risk from perhaps a stronger slowdown in Chinese growth than is currently expected, but we do believe that China will probably respond with monetary policy, and that will, to some extent, help improve Chinese growth prospects as well. So I think we're not going back towards the high in the Australian dollar that we saw earlier this year, but we do believe the currency will stay 2 to 4 cents above parity through most of 2012.
Thank you very much, Vassili. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Now stay tuned for more Targets in Focus next week, but for now, have a great weekend. Goodbye.